All right. Oh. There we are. Welcome to the show. We got a fun show on deck tonight. I don't really know where I'm going to go with whatever I want to talk about tonight, but we're just going to kind of go with the flow, as they say. Name is Jesse. This is the Transformation Podcast, and let's get rolling. So, a lot of things happening in the world right now. Before we talk about what's happening around the world, I want to talk a little bit about the path to happiness and the path to peace. It's pivotal to achieve these things as we move forward. It's pivotal to achieve peace. It's pivotal to achieve happiness. How do we get there? What's it look like? I'm going to share my routine. And maybe this could help people out, give them maybe an idea of some different practices to use. I can say for sure that these practices work really well for me personally. If you don't have routine, you don't have purpose. If you don't have purpose, then what is the point of life? And everybody can decide what that purpose is, but it might not be the purpose that you've been assigned. And that's the confusing part about this life. Is there's usually two or maybe sometimes three different voices that talk to you in your head, and it's sometimes hard to decipher which one is talking to you. Is it the ego? Is it your heart? Or is it God? What one of those three are the ones that are having those conversations with you? Is there a shit talker between your ears that are telling you things to self-sabotage yourself? My routine has become a staple of my newfound happiness and my peace. And it starts with a quiet meditation and silence. This is every day. Sometimes in the morning, sometimes in the evening, sometimes in the middle of the day. It depends. When you're able to meditate, it requires a lot of patience. Some people could try meditating for a week and say it doesn't do anything for them. A lot of us like instant gratification, especially in this day and age. It's so easy to get that instant hit, that instant result from something. Like we get frustrated now when it takes our phones longer than 5 seconds to load. How is that going to translate to life? Because things that blossom and things that grow don't take 5 seconds. They don't take a day. They don't take a week. Sometimes it takes months. And a lot of these habits that are embedded in my routine are wrapped in that realm of progress and persistence. Progress and persistence. Progress and persistence. When you meditate, you might not notice a difference tomorrow or the next day, but just like anything else, when you continue to work at it and that repetitive practice goes on its way, you then begin to notice results, maybe not the day after or a week after, but then you look back on maybe what you have been journaling for 2 months, and you look back and you're like, wow, the progress that I've made, the problems that I've been able to solve just from meditation alone have been pivotal in my success and my growth and my sobriety. So meditation is one of the 4 things that I use on a daily basis to really ground myself and center myself and help me decipher who that is, who that shit talker between my ears is, and when I'm talking from my heart. Because sometimes that shit talker still comes and he tries to bring me down, man. He feeds the fuel sometimes when things are difficult. It's like, okay, fight back. And sometimes fighting back is the right thing to do, but not all the time. It's more you're going to show more of a consistent personality when you can remove yourself from something emotionally and then make a rational decision about a life obstacle. And it could go anywhere from kids to a job to, even a simple interaction at the gym. It doesn't matter what the situation might be. If you're able to remove the emotion out of it, more times than not, you can make a sound, rational decision that will provide some benefits, right? So that's the key of meditation, is you're exercising that brain, you're using that brain, you're finding yourself, you're knowing yourself, you're taking that time to get to know yourself. You're taking that time to learn those mechanisms to separate yourself from the emotion and make that rational decision. The second thing is exercise. They talk about, actually, I saw a video on Instagram today. Maybe if we have some time, I could share a screen and I could try to find that video. I think I reposted it, but I think I talked about it on a previous episode, but the idea of a runner's high. What's the idea of a runner's high? Well, the idea of a runner's high is when you run and push yourself, it creates some sort of endorphins, is what they say. Now, this video that I was watching says when you get that high, it's very similar, and it's for 22 minutes. If your heartbeat is at 170 for 22 minutes, not 20, not 25, 22 minutes, or I think it's if you're pushing yourself at least 70%, I think it was 170 beats per minute for 22 minutes. It gives you a high, like a cannabinoid high, some sort of THC high. And I think I can vouch for that. I do the Stairmaster every single morning, and I'm going to start setting it for 22 minutes. We're going to really test out that theory. But when you're exercising, you do something difficult, it makes the rest of the day so easy. If you're able to get in the morning and get that difficult task out of the way, you look at that Stairmaster and you're just talking shit back and forth, that fucking Stairmaster. You're like, you piece of shit, you're going to make it hard on me today. And then I talk shit back to the Stairmaster and I said, I'm not taking your shit today. I'm climbing 100 floors at level 9 and we're going for it. And when you complete a task like that, the effect of accomplishing something can give you not only are you getting the high from the workout, but you're also getting reassurance that you were able to complete at least one task today. And what that task was the goal that you set for yourself to have a more disciplined lifestyle. The purpose of exercise in the gym or running, walking, if you can't afford a gym, work out at home, do push-ups and sit-ups, simple as that. I mean, 100 each every single night for 3 weeks, you're going to notice a difference in your posture. You're going to notice a difference in your chest. You're going to notice a difference in your head, in your mind, the way that you think. There's going to be so many benefits from exercise that are going to contribute to that routine that's going to make you happy. Third thing, Gratitude. Being grateful for something or anything is a cheat code to life. Sometimes it's hard for us to step back and really appreciate something. As I think about things that I appreciate right now, it could be something so simple. I appreciate my tongue. If I didn't have my tongue, I wouldn't have the ability to talk. I wouldn't be sitting here right now talking to you. I'm grateful for my mind. As I continue to grow and continue to learn how to articulate a message into this microphone, I'm grateful for the opportunity to have the mind that can work like that can maybe deliver a message on an effective level. That's gratitude. That's being grateful. I'm grateful for my knees. I'm grateful for my back. Now, if we want to get a little bit deeper with it, we can think about things that we're grateful in our lives that are special, like our kids. And that really makes us present. When you have that gratitude for your children and you're with them in the moment, it's that presence, right? It's stopping and smelling the roses. For so long in my 20s, chasing money, working all the time, nonstop grind, chasing, always chasing my tail, right? Never once did I appreciate what I had. No matter how much crap I bought, no matter, how many drugs I did in my 20s, I didn't appreciate a single bit of it, not an ounce, because I was living life so fast and I wasn't slowing down and taking a moment to stop and smell the roses, as they say. When you encounter something difficult or an obstacle in your day, gratitude is an incredibly effective tool to use to overcome that obstacle. I can think of an example last week where I had received some news in the mail that wasn't, to my liking, right? Something that felt like a setback for me. Now, what happens in that moment when you get that news that feels like a setback? And it can be something incredibly serious, or it can be something incredibly trivial. We each have our own struggles that we deal with. Something can be so simple compared to something being so difficult. Actually, before I continue going down that road, I want to tell a little side story about the idea of perspective. So when I was in Costa Rica, at the end of the ceremony, I was sitting next to somebody that was really going through it. And we're not supposed to talk to each other. Music was loud. There was an opportunity to kind of sneak in a little bit of a conversation, right? And in this moment in ceremony, you're completely overwhelmed with the sights and the smells and the sounds. It all seems so euphoric, right? And a lot of people that go there are still, they're going through a struggle in their journey and exercising whatever sort of demons they're chasing around in their mind, right? And everybody's are a little bit different. So I'm sitting here in Costa Rica, and at this point, this was the final ceremony. At this point, I had figured out a lot for me mentally, and this was on the way down the hill. I was coasting down the hill, and I was just so happy to be there. And I had realized that maybe my problems in life weren't so bad. It could be a lot worse. There's a lot of things that I was grateful for, right? On the other hand, I had this guy sitting next to me, and he had asked me, he said, "I have a question for you." I said, "Sure. What's the question?" And he's struggling, man. He's head between the knees, or head between the arms, almost like fetal position, right? And he says, "Well, I got this letter in the mail, and I know I paid it off, but the collection company is trying to, send me to collections for this couch that I bought, but I know I paid it off." And I'm sitting there thinking, wow, I have some people here in Costa Rica that are working through previous traumatizing events in their childhood. And I have this guy here, and no disrespect to him because I love him as my brother, but he's worried about a payment financially. And rightfully so, finances can be extremely worrisome and they can weigh a lot on our mind. But at that moment, he provided me the idea of perspective. And I had replied to him. I said, well, what I'm thinking about doing my money right now is literally setting it ablaze in the backyard, making a video on Twitter and hoping that it goes viral, that we just burn money and we become a society that no longer chases it because it's not worth it. And he asked me, he goes, are you rich? I said, no, far from it, far from rich. And all of a sudden, the gyrations and the worries had left his body. And at that moment, he provided me the perspective of the different struggles that we go through can seem so simple. And I had provided him my perspective of, it's just money, dude. It's just paper. It comes and goes. You still have your family. You still have your life. You have so much ahead of you, and those collectors, they can't take that shit away from you, man. They can't take your happiness. Sure, they can fucking piss you off and call you and leave you a message and leave you a notification so you got to listen to it. I mean, how annoying is that when you have that little fucking red bubble over your phone? And then when you go to the voicemail to listen to it, you got to listen to the whole thing in order to clear the notification, or you just have to delete it. First world problems, am I right? So going back to my talk on gratitude, be grateful for the things that you have. When you encounter those moments, those obstacles, those what feel like setbacks to you, think about what those setbacks can't take from you. And what those setbacks can't take from you is your happiness, your joy, your family, your life, your relationship with God. These are things that you get to have, and only you get to have. Remember that these are things that are exclusive to you, because these are the things in your life. It's so much more valuable than possessions. So that's the third thing. The last thing that has contributed to my complete life change and overall happiness is sleep. Sleep is huge. Sleep is it's so important. And if you're tired, take a nap. When I have finally gotten myself on a routine of 6 to 8 hours every single night, and my hours do vary. They're not perfect. I go to the gym between 4:30 a.m. and 6:30 a.m. depending on when my body is ready to wake up. But when you're able to get that sleep and put yourself on a schedule, it makes the rest of your days so much easier. And you can't achieve number 4 without the other 3. Meditation calms the mind. Exercise may put a strain on the body at the time of exercise, but then relaxes the body because your nervous system is feeling like they already went through the hard part of the day. And gratitude, you're thanking the higher ups for what you have. Then sleep becomes possible. For me personally, I've never had a problem sleeping. My issue was I would use substances to stay awake all the time, just to rot my brain and play video games. And it's not that I dislike video games, but the amount of time I was spending playing video games was rotting my brain. It was distancing myself from being grounded and centered in life. Just like other things, substances, fast food. There's a lot of things that can separate yourself from being grounded. And if you are able to practice those 3 things, the meditation, exercise, gratitude, sleep comes for the 4th. And then before you know it, it becomes a synchronicity that is so smooth that it just becomes part of the daily routine. So overall, those are the 4 keys to I would say, my overall life change and my overall happiness. And I just really wanted to share that. Looks like I have some comments. Let's take a look here. Oh, we got Matt on Let Me Eat That Brain Rot. There we go. Here. Welcome to the show, Matthew. Thanks for hopping on. Matt, have you taken any Tylenol? So yesterday it was mentioned. I'm gonna switch gears a little bit. We'll talk about some world news, and I'm probably gonna share some videos and some other posts and whatnot. But we're talking about RFK and Trump had made the announcement that Tylenol in pregnant women causes autism, acetaminophen, which the president had trouble saying, which was kind of funny. Maybe we can find that video. It was such a genuine moment of him not knowing how to say acetaminophen. And I don't really know too many adults that don't know how to say acetaminophen because it's part of our daily routine. I guess he doesn't use aspirin, or he has, and he just doesn't know what it is. He just throws it into his palm. I've always felt like, because when I used to work retail and long hours, I used to take acetaminophen for my daily routine, just kind of numb the body throughout the day. And I always felt like, man, this got to be rotting my gut, right? And they come out with this report, and as Matt's saying here, the Democrats are losing their minds. Yeah, there's pregnant women right now on the internet taking Tylenol to prove a point. It was the same thing as when they were trying to stop when they're trying to change the seed oil to cow fat, and then people started drinking seed oil as like this rebellion. So it's it's funny to watch the liberals because they're so irrational. And I think Matt probably agrees with this point, but I think it was his first time voting this last year, and he voted on the right side. And I'm moving more and more towards the center myself in some ways, and then way far right in some other ways. And I don't know if there's a candidate that really aligns with my views, but the thing about liberals is it goes back to even like Kamala Harris's book that just came out. First of all, she's blaming Joe Biden for losing, and then she put in the book that she couldn't assign Pete Buttigieg as the vice president because there was a lot at stake, and naming a gay vice president probably wasn't the best idea. So instead, that was nicknamed Tampon Tim, for God's sakes. What the Democrats do is they just focus on identity politics, and that's it. It's like, oh, he's gay. Oh, he's black. Let's let him run. Let's make him president or her run because it's our first female president. And we want to be the first to do it. And we're shoehorning all this bullshit into our society, which is so funny to me. And, like the right side and their obsession with Israel is also very concerning, but it's like, what way do I really go here? Because on the left, they're just putting people in because of their skin color, their gender, or their sexual preferences. And on the right, it's like, okay, well, Israel is funding this politician and this politician. And then there's AIPAC, and then they're bringing all these influencers over, and they're trying to control the message. And then the tech oligarchs are the ones that are funding these candidates from the right. It's this giant fucking mess. And I don't know where to go with any of it. I almost feel like we're in an age where we have way too much information. Is that a good thing? I think it's a good thing, but at the same time, maybe it's not. It's not as simple as voting left or right anymore. And I think that's where we need to now begin the idea of a third party. How does that happen? How do we coordinate that? I have no idea, but it's going to take each and every one of us to be on the same page, because I believe most topics are 80-20 topics. And what each side of the aisle does is they get to pick and choose what their topic is, and no matter what the circumstance is, they're gonna die on that fucking hill for that circumstance. An example I can think of is this morning they were on Fox News. They were showing this the illegal street racers. Tim, they're showing these illegal street racers where they were doing donuts in the street, and all the people are surrounded around the people doing donuts, and it's on the show called Outnumbered, where it's 4 females and a male, and they're giving their right-wing Republican takes on why it's wrong to be street racing and how fucking dangerous it is, and it's all this bullshit, right? And of course their talking point is, well, it's happening in blue cities. Street racing's happening in blue cities. No, jackasses. Street racing happens in every single city. And then they pulled the statistics of how many people have died from street racing over the last 4 years, and it's been 1 person per year. I think most people understand the risk of what they're going to go watch somebody go street race, which, by the way, I've never done it, but I think that'd be incredibly fun. Be a little bit lawless for a night, you know. I've never done it, but especially if I was like a young 20-year-old kid, get me in a car, I'll fucking race all day long. That shit's fun, man. And let kids be kids. They got all like these helicopters now taking footage and license plate numbers, and it's like, man, times have changed so much because there was a time when there weren't cameras and there wasn't surveillance. There wasn't any sort of accountability. Speaking of accountability, I'm going to touch on Kimmel for a second. So Kimmel got his show back. Disney had decided, well, I guess maybe we'll bring him back. And, you know, they did say that they were going to suspend him. They didn't say they were going to fire him, but they did say suspend indefinitely. And, you know, they brought him back and they said the Republicans had nothing to do with them suspending Kimmel. However, enough of the pushback forced Disney to rehire Kimmel. Now, I want to take the side of it's a dangerous, slippery slope to hold somebody accountable for what they say and cancel them. But at the same time, Tim Allen had Last Man Standing canceled. Roseanne Barr had her show canceled. Both shows, by the way, were performing incredibly well. You've got like Nick Fuentes banned from every single platform on social media. Yet Jimmy Kimmel makes a comment about, you know, the MAGA being part of the whole shooter thing, and it was a very sensitive time, so it made sense to take him off the air. But that wasn't the only fucked up thing he has said. He took a victory lap on Tucker Carlson getting canceled. He took a victory lap, or not victory lap, but I remember when he said the unvaccinated needed to die. I think that was a little bit more intense than what he said about the shooter situation, which is also a really weird situation still. More and more keeps coming out, and it just it gets worse and worse. The actor from The Mandalorian is fired. Oh yeah. Forget the name. It was another Disney star, wasn't it? Something. But regardless, it's silly stuff, man. I feel like these are the things that circulate in the news cycle to distract us from other things that are happening. For example, how long did we spend on Cracker Barrel? And by the way, I think President Trump commented more on Cracker Barrel than he did on the death of Charlie Kirk, which was absolutely nuts to me. In the chat, I'm curious what the opinions are of how many people watched the Charlie Kirk funeral. I saw bits and clips from different speeches. I found the Tucker Carlson speech to be incredibly disingenuous. He did that weird cackle, and I think you know what I'm talking about. Like, he had made a joke and then he had felt the need to laugh behind it. And I understand during eulogies, you know, like you want to kind of keep it light. Like something Trump got picked on for, which was actually, in my opinion, funny, was, you know, Charlie Kirk, he loved his opponents. Me, I hated my opponents. And it was like, okay, that is kind of funny, you know, but overall, the entire assembly, it was very cringy, Tim. I completely agree with you. It was, oh man. You know, how else do you hold a funeral like that? There were so many people that he had impacted. The fireworks too. Yes. The fireworks were tough. But as Matt says here, the worshiping at the beginning is beautiful. I didn't catch it, so I didn't see a whole lot of it. But the fireworks thing, yeah, it was like almost like a show. But let's see here. I was gonna pull something up now, and I forget what it was. Here we go. Oh yes, now I remember what it is. I wanted to share the acetaminophen clip with Trump. This is actually pretty good. I find this funny. Matt and I have talked about autism in the past and vaccinations, and these are things that haven't been talked about. You know, in the mainstream media, this has always been what they would call pseudoscience. You don't and trust the science. But it finally feels like a lot is coming out about this. And I'm not saying eliminate vaccinations from the public. What I'm really truly saying is just allow us to have a choice. And that's why I can never trust corporations going forward ever again, because there's been multiple instances in my life where you got to take the shot, you got to wear the mask, you have to do these things. And I understand there's guidelines and whatnot, but it's like, don't impede on my freedom of choice. And that's essentially what America is in that regard, is I should be able to choose whether or not I want to take any kind of inoculation into my body, period. We could go deep into talking about the polio vaccine and how it was manufactured by agricultural DDT. I think in the 40s or 50s, that's what had caused polio. As polio had begun to kind of square off, they had made the vaccine. Going forward, every single, was it like 99% of polio cases are from the strain of the vaccine and not actually the initial marker in the beginning. That's something that Suzanne Humphries had talked about on Rogan and in her book as well. Absolutely wild shit. And if you look at the schedule of vaccines from, I think it was like 50 years ago, there was like 5. And now there's 72 over the course of 5 years, which is absolutely nuts. You look at all these, and these are little bodies we're talking about too. We're talking about 20-pound people. If you were to give a 20-pound baby a shot of liquor, that baby would be fucking hammered. And you're going to inject 5 milliliters of a scientifically synthesized heavy metal into the bloodstream. You know, God created all of us to survive and live for the most part. While it seems like we're helpless as babies, there are things that mothers can provide to the baby to help it survive. This whole planet is honestly self-sustainable without the advances of science in a lot of ways. Now, I'm not going to talk bad about surgery, because surgery has come such a long ways. There can be serious issues out there, and if you have a really great surgeon, he can repair those things for you. That's important. And those people out there that are doing those jobs, those are incredibly pivotal to society to maintain the health of the body. Definitely 100%. But when you start talking about injecting yourself with heavy metals to protect yourself from different diseases, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I mean, think about the flu shot, for instance. Every single year, a new strain of the flu comes out. But how do you have a vaccine for the new strain if it hasn't come out yet? Each flu shot is the strain previous. It doesn't make sense. You're chasing it every single time. I've never had a flu shot in my life, and I haven't had the flu in over 15 years. I've had COVID a couple times. I don't have the COVID shot, but these are the things that should be talked about quite a bit. All right, I want to share this clip. Let's do this. All right, there we go. Perfect. All right. And I'll go bam, bam. All right, perfect. Here we go. This is funny. I like this.
Immediately, the FDA will be notifying physicians that the use of well, let's see how we say that.
Well, let's see how we say that.
Acetaminophen.
Acetaminophen.
Okay. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Which is basically commonly.
I when I watch RFK, because RFK was initially going to run against him, and I feel like RFK had felt it was so pivotal to work on the health of America. He was willing to do whatever he could to make sure he had an impact on that. So he made a truce with Trump, right? And you watch Trump try to relay the messages, and you watch RFK's reaction. He's been a gentleman about it all. Quite honestly, I can't think of a guy right now in the administration of Trump's that handles himself better than RFK. I think he's been honestly the lone bright spot. I'm not happy with Kash Patel. I'm not happy with Pam Bondi. Who else is there? Kristi Noem. Overall, RFK, in my eyes, has done the best job. They're starting to inch closer and closer and closer to finally admitting that vaccines cause autism. I mean, if you look at Amish communities also, they don't suffer from these problems. They don't inoculate their children. If you look at people that are 50, 60 years old, there's nobody walking on their toes. There's nobody with Down syndrome at that age group. There's clearly been a change. There's clearly been a difference, and we don't talk enough about it. All right, I'm going to throw up this next. So I have become a big fan of Nick Fuentes for a lot of reasons. He just feels like a real person. He feels genuine, right? And he's been the one who has really red-pilled me as far as it comes to Israel. And it was a natural reaction for me because maybe I don't understand the full scope of the whole political environment in the world, for me to instantly blame Charlie Kirk's death on Israel. And that was my initial reaction. And I hadn't made a video decisively saying that, only talking about maybe what the facts or not the facts are, because I just don't feel like it doesn't make enough sense to me. Like, sure, there's clips of him eventually, starting to change his position on Israel, but I don't think they would have killed Kirk to really send a message overall. And what we're really beginning to encounter, and this is what's going to sour on the whole movement of moving away from Israel, is we're going to start welcoming into our community people who wear the sunglasses and the hats and the profile pics. You know who I'm talking about? Those people. Those are the people, obviously that everybody's vote is essential, but is that really what you want backing up? It can be kind of a bad look sometimes. So I'm going to play this video next, and I'll kind of comment and narrate on it, but let's sit back and enjoy. This is Nick Fuentes sharing about low IQ anti-Semitism.
It seems that with each new revelation, the more answers we get, it seems implausible. It seems more implausible that there's some conspiracy. And now the goalposts are shifting. So it started out with Israel did it, and you're covering it up, and you're avoiding the subject because you're afraid they paid you off. And now they're saying, well, why doesn't he want us to ask questions? Well, you could forgive us for not trusting the FBI. Well, why should we believe the FBI story? So there's been a very subtle changing of the goalposts. Last week, everybody was sure. Now they're saying, well, hey, well, you can't attack us for not believing the official narrative. And I think that's because the evidence is drying up. And I want to say at the outset, on the Israel conspiracy, initially, I just didn't say anything about it. I did my show last week on Thursday. I didn't even address it. And I tweeted throughout that week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I said nothing on the subject. And you know what people told me? They said, you're avoiding it. You're covering it up. You're hiding it. At first, I just said nothing. I didn't even talk about it. And people started coming at me. Why is he avoiding it? Why are you not talking about it? Are you in on it? And I said, all right, I'll talk about it. I said, I'm not convinced. I said, I'll lay out the case, which I did on Monday. I said, and here's the FBI narrative, and here's the discrepancies and problems with it. I said, and here is the Israel conspiracy, and here's where it makes sense, and here's where it doesn't make sense. And then people said, you don't believe it. Well, that's because they paid you off and you're afraid. It's like, okay, so first I was avoiding it. Then I addressed it head on and laid it out in detail, but I don't believe it. Now I'm a shill because I don't believe it. Okay. Well, here we are now, a week and a half after the fact. Charlie Kirk was murdered last Wednesday, so it's been a weekend change since it happened. And a lot of these questions that were initially asked are now being answered. Because that's sort of how these things go. When something surprising happens, when a crisis happens, it actually takes time to establish all the facts. People are saying, we need answers. Where's the... And don't get me wrong. Granted, that is a healthy response. That's a healthy and normal response. You should ask questions about it. But people were asking it in a rhetorical way, as if to say, we're not actually interested in the answers. The question in itself is a form of evidence. What am I referring to in particular? Let me be specific. So last week, they said Charlie Kirk was just murdered. Israel's responsible. Now, the natural question for anyone skeptical, someone like myself, is why would Israel kill Charlie Kirk? He was pro-Israel until the day he died. What's the motive there? Anti-Semitism is exploding everywhere in the world. The whole world has turned against Israel. The youth, the right, the left, everyone has turned against Israel. Why would they kill one of the few people that is still pro-Israel? And they said, well, they're going to replace him with someone even more pro-Israel. I said, yeah, that seems far-fetched. That seems like a stretch. Ben Shapiro, in his coverage of it the following day, said, I will pick up the blood-stained microphone from Charlie Kirk and carry on the mission. Now, I took that to mean rhetorically that he is going to keep fighting the same fight, that he is going to do campus events. He will advocate for basic conservatism. Rhetorical. He didn't mean I'm literally going to take over Turning Point. I think what he meant was we're going to carry on the battle for conservatism. Everybody else said, that means Ben Shapiro's taking over Turning Point. It's regime change. They killed Kirk to get Shapiro in charge. Kirk was wavering, so they needed to appoint a more staunch, hardline person that is pro-Israel. Well, what happened in the past few days? Did Ben Shapiro replace Charlie Kirk? Idiots. Hey, dummies who don't understand rhetoric. Did Ben Shapiro take over from Charlie Kirk? So, and by the way, some people just lied about that. Some people just falsely reported and lied about that. They took that clip where Shapiro said, it's our mission to pick up his bloodstained microphone and carry on the work. And people just lied. And they said, Ben Shapiro announces he's taking over Turning Point. That's not what he said. But they just lied. Well, who was appointed as Charlie Kirk's replacement? His wife. His wife, Erica. Now, if Israel murdered Charlie Kirk, and if that was credible in any way, and Erica Kirk knew about that, how would that help Israel? If Charlie Kirk was wavering, he was obviously pro-Israel. He talked to his rabbi the morning that he died about how to defend Israel on his campus tour. If Charlie Kirk was wavering and Israel killed him, now he's replaced by his wife. Do you think she's going to be more or less pro-Israel than him? Israel just apparently murdered your husband and father of your children. So if he was wavering, now she's going to have a blood feud with Israel. How does that help them? In what way does that help? Tucker and Candace know that Israel killed him for his wavering support, but his fucking wife didn't. Max Blumenthal knows that Charlie Kirk was taken out because he was having this crisis of conscience whether to support Israel. I guess his wife didn't get the memo. I guess Israel didn't account for his succession. They took him out. Fingers crossed. I hope Ben Shapiro replaces him. I hope it's not his wife, who knows how afraid of dying he is. Harrison Smith and Max Blumenthal know his state of mind, but not his wife. Harrison Smith, Max Blumenthal, and Ian Carroll and Candace Owens know he was killed because he was afraid of turning against Israel, but his wife would never speculate that. And Israel never accounted that his vengeful wife would supplant him in the organization. I guess they didn't take care of that part. They had the trap door lined up, the private jet to Tuba City, the blood packs ready to go. Didn't account for the succession. Okay. Then people said, who's that person taking the SD cards out of the cameras after Charlie Kirk was killed? Today, Charlie Kirk's producer comes on the air and said that was a Turning Point person. And he took the cards out of the cameras because people were stealing things from the booth. People jumped over the barricades and stole hats, and that person wanted to make sure that the footage didn't fall into the wrong hands. It's been turned over to the FBI. Apparently, Candace Owens has seen it too.
Something I wanted to talk about. What do we know from the video that we've watched? And I feel like we've watched so many different angles. When he mentions the Turning Point employee taking the SD cards out, something also odd that hasn't really been explained is what is with all the hand motions and baseball signals that were going on behind Charlie Kirk before the shooting had happened. What is that all about? Does it suggest that it's an inside job? Another thing, it still hasn't been answered. I've asked the question a few different times. I've put the question out on the internet. Does anybody know the person that asked the question? Has anybody dug into that yet? Who did ask the question? It seems like the question was a trigger question, 100%. Because obviously the question was mass shooting, transgender, get shot. Very, very odd. The guy that plays Patsy, George Zinn, who was there for 9/11. He was around for the Boston bombing, called in a fake bomb threat the day of the Boston bombing, and then is there for the shooting, Charlie Kirk's death. What do those three things have in common? I think all three have, and I've never dug into the Boston bombing. I was too young to be, I wasn't awake at that point in my life, so I don't know a whole lot of details. But I think Tim just nailed on the head. It's crisis actors, and that's something very. Remember David Hogg or David Haig? If he was at Sandy Hook, he was at another school shooting, then he was on CNN, and now he's like the leader of what is it, the DNC or something like that. This dude was a crisis actor and now is part of the DNC. Crisis actors suggest that there is some sort of operation happening, and maybe when we talk about Israel being the culprit for Charlie Kirk's murder, maybe it's not directly Israel, Bibi Netanyahu specifically. Maybe it's an operation undercover within the Mossad or the CIA. Absolutely possible. I know that there are clips of him being critical of the ethnic cleansing in Palestine. But there's also clips of him still having the back of Israel. Other than the whole Palestinian debacle that's happening, I mean, anybody with a heart that sees that stuff obviously should have something critical to say. When you see the videos of those women and the children trying to get food, the soup line, and they're piled on top of each other, and there's nothing left of the city. Like, how can you not have a heart, especially a man of God like Charlie Kirk was? He still supported the Iranian bombing. He still supported the Qatar bombing. There were a lot of other things that he did support. As far as it goes for the left, I know that in the comments, the argument was, why not go after somebody more aggressive? I don't think Steven Crowder or the other one mentioned has the pull and the effect that Charlie Kirk did. Charlie Kirk, for Republicans, this assassination falls almost on the same level as Martin Luther King Jr. being assassinated, who of which was a Republican, ironically. Something I want to touch on, the way that the right handled the death of Charlie Kirk is so admirable, and I think it speaks volumes to that side. Instead of riots and hate, this event has brought a lot of people towards Christ, and it's been a beautiful thing to witness. It's been beautiful. It's been one of the most special things ever, and I think that's, if Charlie Kirk truly was a man of God, which it seems like he was, I think that's exactly what he would want, was exactly the way that everybody acted. Something that different Democrats on Twitter wanted to point out was, after they left the rally or the ceremony, everybody's garbage was on the ground because people had been waiting there for days. And different Democrats were like, "Oh, MAGA trashes places everywhere they go." And I'm thinking to myself, I live in Minneapolis, where I watched Democrats burn down a fucking city over a fentanyl addict who got kneeled on in the middle of a street on Memorial Day in Minnesota. Did anybody forget about that? Did anybody forget about Wisconsin with Kyle Rittenhouse? Fucking that. Well, what city was that again? That city was completely destroyed. So to point these things out is just incredibly hypocritical, and just makes me feel like there's bot farming everywhere, because what person with the right mind would even make a comment like that? And then we look at people that have like celebrated his death as well. There's a lot of fucking evil people in this country that were happy to see him die. I can't really remember anybody on the internet that was happy to see somebody like George Floyd die. Now, the argument was, watch the body cam footage. He was resisting arrest. He died from an overdose. There's arguments to that death, but there was nobody celebrating that he died. And this is a guy who held a gun to a pregnant woman's stomach while he robbed her. And he has a fucking statue in Minneapolis, for God's sakes. And we want to we're being told that they don't feel bad for us because we didn't have sympathy about George Floyd, but Charlie Kirk deserves sympathy. Well, they're two different people in so many ways, not just skin color. George Floyd is a lifetime criminal. So overall, there's no cities burnt down. There's no violence. the first thing that I feared personally when this happened was some sort of retribution, and it still could be in the cards for all we know. 100%. I mean, these things do take a little bit of time sometimes, but I think as a whole, it's been handled incredibly well. And if anything, it feels like the country in a lot of ways is coming together more. And I think a lot of us are realizing this is a lot bigger than politics. And this is the further point I'm making. It has everything to do with God, good, Satan, evil. That's what all of this has to do. 100%. This is a much bigger debate than just politics themselves, and we can follow names and we can follow money as to, you know, maybe where things are going, but at the end of the day, these things that are happening that are evil are led by Satan. And it goes back to what I was talking about at the beginning of this video of grounding yourself and connecting yourself. Is when you're able to ground yourself and connect yourself with the earth, you get closer and closer to God, and you then realize not only what your purpose is in life, but you also realize that God's going to take care of it. And Tim, that's exactly right. It's a spiritual war, 100%. And our prayers are becoming so strong that this is not gonna continue to fly in this world. The love continues to spread. The word continues to go around. Podcasts like this that talks about the spiritual connection in ayahuasca. I want to be able to educate people on the tool that it is in life and what it can do to completely change your life and make you into a person that is connected with God. It's so important. And going back to the whole vaccine debate, as well as antidepressants and anxiety medication, this is the stuff that is separating us from our soul. This is the stuff that isn't allowing us to honestly process our problems. And I can guarantee you, probably 80% of people that are on those medications probably have a drink every once in a while. You're not supposed to fucking drink on that shit. It's a downer, for God's sakes. You're already a down person. You're taking things that are raising your serotonin levels. What are you thinking? Seriously. And I don't mean to shame anybody that takes those things, but you gotta do a little bit more research. You gotta find some sort of faith. It doesn't have to be a religion necessarily. You don't have to join a church. You don't have to convert to Islam. You don't have to go across the country to become a Buddhist, Hindu, whatever it is. You just have to find that connection within yourself. And once you find it, you can be grounded. And as Tim had just mentioned, it's all about the spiritual war, good versus evil. And that's what this life is about, is good versus evil. And what side do you want to be on? Me personally, I will never celebrate a public execution of anybody. I can't watch that stuff. Had I known what I was clicking on, I wouldn't have watched it. 100%. I mean, even it's going to make me sound like a conspiracy theorist. You know, I watched the video of Saddam Hussein getting hung, if it was actually Saddam Hussein. Even then, you know, at that time, the country had completely turned us against him, but it wasn't like all of us were in the streets jumping around excited that they killed him or hung him. That is an interesting thing too, when you again talk about what was going on in Afghanistan and Iraq pre-2001 and the ties that it had with Israel. And then also, you know, I think it was, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was Afghanistan had the largest poppy seed fields in the world, which, by the way, poppy seed fields produce heroin. And there were U.S. national troops guarding those fields. It seems like the war was a lot more than just maybe weapons of mass destruction. You had Dick Cheney's company Halliburton overseas moving weapons and oil for the U.S. military. They, I think that was on that movie War Pigs, when they were contracting arms dealers, and there was a lot to that whole war that still, I think, deserves some sort of like behind the scenes documentary because it's actually so fascinating. Other than that, I think I'm going to end on that note tonight. Maybe I'll hang around for 5 or 10 minutes here. We'll play some videos. If anybody has any questions, go for it. But I'm just going to I'm going to cruise on X for a little bit. We'll just play around and we'll just kind of see where it goes. Okay. There we go. Perfect. Yeah, let's see here. This might be fun. Conspiracy theories you find actually true. Oh, that's good. Let's see here. Oh, my bad. Let's add that. There, now you can see it. Israel murdered JFK. I can talk on that a little bit. I know a little bit about that. So it is said that Israel was trying to build a nuclear bomb. And the original prime minister of Israel, and I'm forgetting what his name is, was the one that was trying to build the bomb. And the U.S. was helping fund it. When JFK had come into office, JFK wanted to do inspections. Was it twice a year? Wanted American inspections of the nuclear bomb. And Israel didn't want to do it. JFK had then decided, you know what, we're going to pull back the funding for the bomb unless you're willing to allow us into the building to inspect what you're doing. We're not going to fund it. JFK had sent the letter in to the first prime minister. JFK sent that letter. That prime minister had stepped down. The new prime minister had then taken the place of the old prime minister. It's never been said if the letter was ever replied to. However, JFK was then assassinated roughly about 3 months later. When Lyndon B. Johnson had taken office after JFK, the nuclear bomb had then begun production once again. It does seem like all roads always kind of lead back to this, which is really funny when we're talking about the Charlie Kirk assassination. Really, when we talk about anything, it just why does it always go back to this every single time? Anyway, let's keep scrolling here. That's a fun one. Yeah, let's go to trending. Here we go. So this is crazy. This is an incredibly vulnerable position for the president. Escalator got stuck and broke. Now it's working again. That's not very good footage, but the fact that how did the escalator get stuck like that? Did a Secret Service person press the stop button on it? Trump had later mentioned it in his speech at the UN Assembly, but very, very strange. And stop. Super weird. Let's see what Jesse Waters has to say. If I can use my mouse right.
Yeah. And they could have hurt what's going on with the escalator. What do you think?
Yeah, they sabotaged them.
Yeah.
And they could have hurt the first lady.
Yeah.
Trump would have fallen and he would have gotten back up. But, you know,
They would have blamed it on his rhetoric.
And then they sabotaged the teleprompter.
Yeah.
I mean, this is an insurrection. And what we need to do is either
Insurrection.
leave the UN or we need to bomb it.
That's crazy. They had
It
to
is in
walk
New
up
York,
that
though,
escalator.
right?
Yeah, it
Could be
is.
some fallout there.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Worry.
Wow.
What's going on with the escalator?
Maybe
What
it
do
was
you
just a
think?
coincidence, but
Yeah,
it is
they
odd.
sabotaged
Like, why'd you want
Yeah.
to
And they
stop
could have
for one
hurt
moment?
the first lady.
Yeah.
Trump
Can you
would have fallen
imagine?
and it would have
That would be fucking crazy. Let's see what else there is. Not a whole lot else going on right now. So I think I'm going to end it here. If anybody's listening, thank you so much for following along. If you like what you heard, like, subscribe, comment, keep the engagement up. I'll be on again in the coming nights. Any topics you want me to talk about, leave them in the chat going forward. I think it'd be kind of fun. Anyone still with me? Thank you so much and have a good night.